The story of the Iran-Israel 12-day war cannot be understood without going back decades, to a time when these two nations were not enemies at all, but uneasy partners. Before 1979, during the reign of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran had opened diplomatic and economic ties with Israel. The two states, though not natural allies, shared strategic interests, both wary of Arab nationalism, both leaning on the United States for support. Iranian oil flowed to Israel, and Israeli technology and expertise quietly made their way into Iran. But this fragile cooperation collapsed overnight with the Iranian Revolution. The rise of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini ushered in a theocratic regime with a radically different worldview. In the new Islamic Republic's ideology, Israel was not just a rival, but an illegitimate state that had to be dismantled. Almost instantly, Tehran cut all ties, declared Israel its sworn enemy, and began building what would later be called the Axis of Resistance, a loose coalition of groups dedicated to opposing Israel through armed struggle. Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and later the Houthis in Yemen became Iran's instruments of indirect warfare. Through them, Tehran could strike Israel without risking open confrontation. Israel, however, was not idle. In the early 2000s, when Iran's secret nuclear program came to light, Israeli leaders saw it as an existential threat. A regime that openly spoke of Israel's destruction could not, in their view, be allowed to possess nuclear weapons. Covert operations began. With American help, Israel developed the Stuxnet cyber attack, crippling Iran's Natanz nuclear facility in 2010. Assassins targeted Iranian scientists on Tehran streets, explosions tore through laboratories, and mysterious fires erupted in missile depots. The war was already being fought, just not openly. By 2023, tensions had reached a boiling point. Hamas's surprise assault on October 7th dragged Israel into a devastating war in Gaza. Hezbollah opened fire from the north, and Houthis struck shipping in the Red Sea. Iran funneled weapons, funding, and expertise to its proxies. Israel retaliated with ferocity, leveling much of Gaza and targeting Iranian commanders in Syria. Meanwhile, Syria itself descended into chaos, with Assad's downfall severing Iran's most critical supply line. The battlefield was expanding, the alliances were shifting, and both Tehran and Jerusalem were preparing for something bigger. Stage was set. Decades of hostility, covert assassinations, proxy wars, and failed diplomacy had built a mountain of grievances. All it needed was a single spark to ignite a direct clash that the world had long feared. That spark was coming. The October 7th Hamas attack was not only a tragedy for Israel, it was a geopolitical earthquake. Israel's immediate and overwhelming retaliation turned Gaza into rubble, but it also triggered a wider regional war. Iran's hand was everywhere, even if unofficially. Hezbollah unleashed thousands of rockets from Lebanon, forcing hundreds of thousands of Israelis to evacuate the north. The Houthis, emboldened by Iranian support, targeted Israeli and Western vessels in the Red Sea. Across the region, Iranian-backed militias threatened U.S. bases and Israeli outposts. The Middle East was a chessboard, and Iran had pieces on almost every square. Israel fought back hard, but its strategy was no longer just about Gaza or Lebanon, it was about Tehran. In January 2024, Israeli jets struck a Damascus building, killing Iranian General Sodego Migd. Just months later, an airstrike destroyed Iran's embassy in Syria, killing Mohammad Reza Zahidi, commander of the elite Quds force. This was more than battlefield tactics, it was a message. Israel was willing to cross every red line. Iran responded with a dramatic missile and drone barrage in April 2024 to 170 drones, 30 cruise missiles, and 120 ballistic missiles hurled toward Israel. The attack was massive, but it was also a test. Western jets from the US, Britain, France, and Jordan joined Israeli air defenses to intercept most of the projectiles. Damage was limited, but the symbolism was enormous. For the first time, Iran had struck Israel directly, and Israel had responded in kind. The summer brought even deadlier escalation. When Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in Tehran, itself Iran was humiliated. Its capital had failed to protect one of its closest allies. Weeks later, Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah was killed. By then, Tehran's leadership felt cornered, compelled to strike back with full force. On October 1, 2024, Iran launched 200 ballistic missiles at Israel, targeting air bases like Nevatim and Tel Nof sites tied not only to Israel's air power, but some suspected, to its nuclear arsenal. While defenses blunted much of the assault, it revealed Israel's greatest fear, that Iran's enormous missile stockpile, estimated at over 3,000, could overwhelm even the best defense systems. Israel's answer was ruthless. On October 26, 2024, F-35 squadrons shredded Iranian missile factories and destroyed advanced Russian-built S-300 air defense batteries. For the first time, Iran's shield was crumbling. Its deterrence rested on missiles. But if Israel could strike production sites at will, the balance of power shifted dramatically. From that moment, everyone knew that a direct war was only a matter of time. By early 2025, diplomacy flickered briefly in Oman, but talks collapsed over Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, ready more than enough for multiple nuclear bombs. Both sides braced themselves. When the war finally came in June, it was swift, brutal, and unlike anything the Middle East had seen before. It began before dawn on June 13, 2025. Israeli F-35 jets pierced Iranian skies in wave after wave, supported by covert drones allegedly launched from hidden bases near Tehran. Iran's radar fell silent, its air defense batteries knocked out before they could even respond. Within hours, Israel had achieved a dream of every air commander: total dominance. The targets were precise, devastating, and symbolic. At Najd and Isfahan, Israel struck the heart of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. At Fordo enrichment facility buried deep under mountains, bombs hammered its surface installations. Ballistic missile depots in Kermanshah, Tabriz, and Tehran went up in flames. Air bases were cratered, runways destroyed, and military leaders killed in their offices. Among the dead were Hossein Salami, commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Guard, and Mohammad Bagheri, Iran's military chief of staff. Two of Iran's top nuclear scientists, Faridun Abbasi and Mohammad Tyranchi, also perished. The shock was immense. For decades, Iran had built an image of resilience, a fortress that could withstand Israel's strikes. But on the very first day of war, its most senior leaders, its prized scientists, and its air defense grid were obliterated. Israel even refueled jets mid-air without fear of detection, a humiliating sign of Iranian vulnerability. Tehran had no choice but to retaliate. Its Shade drones were swatted from the skies, but its ballistic missiles were another matter. Hundreds were launched in salvos designed to overwhelm Israeli defenses. Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow systems intercepted most, but not all. Tel Aviv shook under incoming fire. Civilian casualties mounted. For Israelis, it was proof that even total air superiority could not shield them completely. For Iranians, it was proof that they could still strike back, still project fear into Israeli cities. The following days became a deadly rhythm. Israeli jets hunting mobile missile launchers, Iranian crews firing and fleeing, Israel bombing suspected hideouts, Iran answering with salvos. But the disparity in power was obvious. By June 16th, Israel was striking at will, hitting not just military sites, but economic lifelines, fuel depots, transport hubs, even sections of Iran's energy grid. The war was not only military, it was psychological, aimed at breaking confidence. Yet one question lingered above all: could Israel truly destroy Iran's nuclear capability? Fordo's centrifuges, buried beneath nearly 90 meters of rock, remained beyond Israel's reach. And without that, the strikes, however devastating, risked being temporary victories. For Israel, the clock was ticking, and the world was watching. By June 18th, the war had settled into a brutal rhythm, but Israel's larger strategy was faltering. Civil unrest in Iran had not materialized. The theocracy stood firm. And while Israel pummeled Iran's infrastructure, the one goal that mattered, destroying Fordo, remained elusive. Israel's arsenal simply could not penetrate that deep. Only the United States possessed the necessary weapon, the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator. President Donald Trump had long promised not to drag America into another Middle Eastern war, but Netanyahu pressed relentlessly. If Iran's nuclear program survived, he warned, the cost would be catastrophic. By late June, Washington relented. On June 22nd, the United States unleashed Operation Midnight Hammer. It was a masterclass in deception and precision. While B-2 bombers staged movements toward Guam to distract Iranian intelligence, the real strike force moved silently. Over 100 American aircraft took part: stealth fighters, refueling tankers, reconnaissance planes, and bombers. 7 B-2 South carried the bunker busters. The attack began with F-22s and F-35s, probing for Iranian air defenses, finding none. Then the bombers descended. 12 GBU-57s slammed into Fordo's shafts and ventilation tunnels. Additional bunker busters tore through Natanz Tomahawk missiles, fired from a submarine, rained down on Isfahan. The earth shook. Explosions echoed across Iran. Hours later, President Trump declared the mission a total success, claiming Iran's nuclear program was completely obliterated. But reality was murkier. Pentagon leaks suggested that Fordo, though damaged, might recover within months. Enriched uranium stockpiles may already have been moved to secret facilities. Tehran admitted losses, but insisted its program lived on. Experts remained divided. Was this a fatal blow, or merely a setback? Iran's response was symbolic at best. Missiles fired at the US Al-Udeid airbase in Qatar were intercepted without damage. The regime, battered but intact, could do little more. By June 24th, under US mediation, a ceasefire was declared. The 12-day war was over, yet its impact would ripple for years. Israel had proven its unmatched dominance in the skies. Iran had shown that its missile arsenal remained a serious deterrent. And America, despite its reluctance, had once again been pulled into the Middle East's endless cycle of wars. The question of Iran's nuclear future, however, remained unanswered. When the guns fell silent on June 24th, neither side could claim absolute victory. Israel had won the battlefield. Its jets flew unchallenged. Its strikes killed top Iranian leaders. And its partnership with the United States inflicted massive damage on nuclear facilities. But strategically, the outcome was less clear. The Iranian regime had not fallen. Protests did not topple the clerics. And Fordo, buried deep in the mountains, remained a haunting symbol of survival. Iran's missile stockpile, though reduced, still existed. Its ability to terrorize Israeli cities had not been eliminated. And the possibility that enriched uranium had been hidden elsewhere meant the nuclear clock might still be ticking. For Israel, the war was both a triumph and a warning. Even total air dominance could not guarantee permanent security. For Iran, the war was devastating but survivable. The theocracy projected defiance, insisting its program would continue. Its propaganda framed the conflict not as defeat, but as proof that it had faced Israel and America together and endured. In a region where narratives often matter more than facts, that message resonated globally. The war reshaped perceptions. Allies of Israel celebrated its precision and resilience. Rivals of the United States saw once again the reach of American power. And yet, across the Middle East, ordinary civilians bore the heaviest price: Israelis, sheltering from missiles, Iranians living under airstrikes, both populations haunted by the shadow of nuclear annihilation. In the end, the 12th-day war left the world with more questions than answers. Did Operation Midnight Hammer truly cripple Iran's nuclear program, or only delay it? Could Israel sustain such campaigns again if Tehran rebuilt? And most of all, had the cycle of escalation been broken, or merely paused until the next spark reignited it? History will judge this war, not only by the cities destroyed or the leaders killed, but by what follows. If Iran rebuilds its program, in secret, then these 12 days may be remembered as little more than a pause before something worse. But if the strikes truly set Iran back for years, they may be seen as one of the boldest military gambles of the 21st century. The Middle East is no stranger to wars, but few have been as fast, brutal, and uncertain as this one. The Iran-Israel 12-day war may be over, but its echoes will shape the region for decades. If you want to follow what comes next, whether Iran rises again or Israel strikes once more, subscribe. Leave your thoughts below, and join us as we uncover the battles that shape our world. This is Kings and Generals, and we'll see you in the next one.